Hello, everybody, and welcome back. And we're going to talk some Reading with Olly, the assistant editor from the Tilehurst End. I won't regale people with our little off-air story there, but the last couple of times we've spoken have kind of been just before impending doom for both of our teams. So hopefully we're speaking on at a better time now. How are you doing, Olly?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I mean, it's a better time now. I think if we'd done this a month ago, it'd have been very different. But obviously,
Yeah.
we've recovered from a very poor start to the season. But since the international break, or since that 3-3 draw against Queens Park Rangers, we've been brilliant. Obviously, lost to Derby in midweek, which is probably a game too far. But yeah, since the international break, 4 wins, 1 draw from 6 games, and the mood has changed dramatically since that first month.
So from the outside, and I'll check your facial response from this comment, I've got some sympathy for Veljko Paunovic, who obviously came in last season, had that ridiculous start, which wouldn't have even been viable if he had the best squad in the league and the most money and all of that stuff. It was a tail off, maybe slightly more than people would have expected, and then a miss. But then when you parlay into that conversation, soft transfer embargoes, Omar Richards going for nothing, Michael Elise having to be fast tracked and then kind of is then in the wrong place in the contract and kind of having to be sold for probably a third of what essentially you would have got if the contract had been longer. I think he's done a pretty decent job to have Reading where they are. Is this completely unfair of me again? It does feel as well with Reading, Olly, we're back into some very good technical players scoring some brilliant goals in games. We had this last season, didn't we? But
Yeah.
when I see Deli Bashiru and Swift and Ijari, they've all taken it in turns scoring worldies. The grumpy outsider does go, oh, can't do that every week, can they? But as you said, it's been a brilliant run. How is my summary in line with your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that is just about fair. I mean, it's probably fair to say we are not the XG favourites of the league. I mean, we never have been ever since Yap's down. Really, the XG was blurring against us for that start last season, and yeah, I mean the Cardiff at the weekend we had sort of 0.09 XG
Yes,
compared
a
to
one.
2.07. So, but yeah, no, that does sort of sum up, as you mentioned, sort of the individual quality in this Reading side. And I think, to be honest, they are some of the best technical players in the league. You know, you look at John Swift, you mentioned Ajaria, Tom Delibisher obviously had a horrific injury at Watford last season, but yeah, he's been brilliant for us so far. And even someone like Danny Drinkwater, who I certainly had my concerns when it was announced that we were signing, but again, he's been brilliant, and you can see, his quality that won in the Premier League and got him an England call up. So yeah, I think fans are starting to come round to having sympathy for Veljko Paunovic. I think certainly after the Huddersfield defeat at the end of August, going into the September international break, the mood was very firmly sort of leaning towards letting him go, because the performances, and obviously particularly that 4-0 defeat to Huddersfield, where I've not seen us defend worse ever in a game than that Huddersfield defeat. That opening month was very poor, but yeah, there is this caveat where he was working with a very limited squad, as you say. Elise went, Richards went, Yaku Mayhew did his ACL in the summer. Lucas Zhao got injured in the second game of the season against Preston. Obi Ajari missed the whole first month
No,
through COVID.
Olly, no centre backs for the last 3 games virtually
No,
as
yeah,
well in this winning run as well.
we've had Josh Laurent playing centre back, who's
Very well, apparently.
actually been very good. He looks like he's been playing there his whole life. But yeah, if you take out those players from that opening month, you essentially took out 80% really of Reading's goals from last season. So in all honesty, it was no surprise that we weren't doing that well. I mean, we were actually still scoring goals. Femi Aziz came in and did very well.
Yeah.
It was just
And then he got hurt as well.
and he got injured as well. Yeah, we have pretty
Incredible.
much a whole starting 11 of players out injured at the moment, bar a goalkeeper. Obviously, Raphael's just come back. But yeah, it wasn't actually the scoring that was the problem. It was the defending, and we just conceded goals for fun, really. I think after 5 games, we conceded 13 goals, which was some sort of championship record after 5 games. But yeah, since the international break, these new signings have bedded in, which I think was the hope. And as you say, that despite the restrictions, despite the transfer embargo, only being able to sign free agents and loan players, the quality that Paunovic has been able to bring in, because we understand that he's sort of driving a lot of the recruitment at the moment with a bit of uncertainty behind the scenes. So Paunovic has been influential in bringing these players in, but the quality that he's brought in, Alan Halilovic, obviously his career's taken a nosedive, but there's definitely quality there. Obviously, he got the winner against Middlesbrough.
There was a lovely, clever assist, wasn't there, for one of the
Ajari's
goals
against,
as well? Yeah,
against
player,
Fulham. Yeah. As I said, Tondeli Bashir has been brilliant. Drinkwater. Junior Hoylett got the winning goal against his former club Cardiff again on the weekend, which I'm sure was a very sweet moment for him. And even Scott Down the last couple of games, as he's sort of got back up to match fitness, has really come in and sort of helped see out a clean sheet against Cardiff. So yeah, considering the constraints in the summer, we're seeing these players come into the fold now, get back up to match fitness. Ajari has come back after missing the first month, and yeah, there's some really, really promising signs, I think.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, and I'm going to make it a very leading question because I can talk about John Swift as an outsider because it's so bleedingly obvious. You know more than me, so I'm not going to let you talk about John Swift. But can you pinpoint? Obviously, he's your best player, and yeah, fine, we all know. But the whole reason we get the likes of you on is to go a little bit deeper. So, who have you enjoyed other than Swift and his 1 million goals and 1 million assists in the first 10 games? Who have you enjoyed other than him?
Yeah, obviously, Swift is the obvious answer, and yeah, he's been brilliant. But there is a lot of quality around the rest of the squad. We've not seen it perhaps consistently, and certainly the back end of last season. But I think other than Swift, your eyes definitely wanted towards Josh Laurent, as I say, who's played centre back the last couple of games. He won Player of the Season last year, having arrived on a free transfer from Shrewsbury last summer. Undoubtedly one of the best signings the club has made over the last couple of years. But we always knew, as I say, he won Player of the Year playing in midfield last season, and sort of at the start of this campaign sort of seemed to bring more of a defensive side to his game. We saw him partnered with Andy Rinomhota, a brilliant partnership at the base of midfield, and sort of Rinomhota sort of more went forward, and Laurent did more of the defensive duties. But yeah, since the Fulham game, so when Tom Holmes got injured, leaving us with just Michael Morrison as one fit senior centre back, and then he also got injured in that game. But Josh Laurent dropped back against Fulham, and as I say, just looked like he played there his whole life. Just brilliant. And then partnered with Andy Yeardom the next game, who Yeardom's a right back, obviously. So a real makeshift defence. But
we were joking, Olly. It was right back, centre midfielder, left back for the last couple of games on one of my streams,
and that's what got our first clean sheet, which is the most bewildering of things. We had a fully fit back four for the first 6 games and shipped 15 goals, whatever, and we play 3 players out of position, we get a clean sheet. So, but yeah, look, I think sometimes all you want as fans is players to show that desire, that passion for the shirt, just that love playing for the club. And we've not always had too many of those players over the last couple of years. But Josh Laurent has come in and bought into the club 100%. Seems to be one of the most popular players in the dressing room. As I say, gives 100% every week, no matter where he's playing. And yeah, he's been brilliant. I think the only shame is that he's out of contract at the end of the season, and I very much doubt we're going to keep. We've got about 6 or 7 players out of contract coming into the season. Yeah, Swift, Laurent, Rinomhota, a lot of them. Tom Holmes out of contract as well. So yeah, and obviously with the stuff behind the scenes, which we might get onto with the points deduction and stuff and the financial stuff, it's looking unlikely, certainly, that people like Swift and Laurent are going to stay beyond the end of this season. So it's just a case of enjoy them while we can, I think.
Ouch. I was enjoying the conversation up until that point, Olly. Never mind. Let's talk about, without sort of, going in 2-footed on anyone, and we're talking about this in a positive sense. Who do you think, and I know you've got players to come back in, who do you think you're going to see more of that you haven't maybe seen, what you'd hoped for so far in that Reading squad?
I think the obvious one is probably George Puskas, and Puskas is sort of the the topic of debate really amongst Reading fans, and I think that the opinion is very much split on him. Still yet to score this season, not scored in his last 16 appearances since April, and obviously with Lucas Zhao out and Mate out and Femi Aziz out and Sam Baldock left in the summer, he's the only sort of senior striker we have at the club. Paunovic has played Junior Hoylett as sort of a false nine in the last few weeks. We've also got a couple of boys from the academy coming through, but really Puskás is that default option. As I say, ultimately a striker's job is to score goals and to win you games, and Puskás just hasn't done that so far this season, and really hasn't done it consistently enough, really sort of in his 2 years at Reading. So it's a really tough one, because it always comes down to the question of, is it just a case of Puskás not fitting the system we play? Is he not getting the service, or is it just a case of that he's not performing to the standards that he should be? Because he's obviously a talented player. You don't sign for Inter Milan. You don't go for sort of £8 million if you're not, if you haven't got that raw quality. But ultimately, he's obviously doesn't fit the 4-2-3-1 system. I think it's obviously needs a partner alongside him, which Paunovic very, very rarely plays. He likes to play 4-2-3-1, and Puskás just doesn't fit that lone striker role. As I say, whether that's a problem of service or whether that's a problem with Puskás himself is the age-old debate. But I think people's patience with Puskás is beginning to wear thin, and you would certainly hope, at least until Zhao comes back in January, that he can sort of step up a little bit.
Well said. Yeah, and I was just trying to remember as you were talking, he must have come in. Oh God, Jose Gomez must have signed him.
It was 2 years ago in the sort of mad final week of the transfer window, where we splashed sort of 13 million on Puskás and Zhao combined, and got Rafael and Matt Miazga and Ovi Ajari, having had this soft transfer embargo all summer 2 years ago, and then suddenly we go and splash loads of money on. So
take Puskás out of that, and that's a damn good window, actually.
It's not bad. And to be fair, we've complained about recruitment over the last few years, but it's definitely getting better, and particularly this summer as well. As I say, that considering the constraints and only being able to bring in loan players and free agents, the quality they've been able to bring in this summer has been very, very good.
Now, obviously, we try and come from an optimistic point of view. So this is a bit of a difficult question for you, because I'm going to ask higher or lower by Christmas. And given all the mitigating factors in getting into a decent 10th place spot, and you've already mentioned there may, I don't know how we phrase it anymore, there may well be a potential profit and sustainability problem. Yeah. And I'm sure you'll be the first to say this. This is not a Mr. Chansiri or a Mr. Mel Morris arguing with the EFL. I think they're talking. I think it's more like Trillion at Birmingham, where they cooperated and it felt a lot nicer. But we've heard 6 points and we've heard 9 points. So I'm going to try and preempt your answer. I'm suspecting you think Reading may well be lower at Christmas than 10th.
Look, it's probably one of the hardest clubs to answer for, because, as you say, this possible points deduction, and we don't really know when it's going to come in. The EFL are not famous for clarity, so it all sort of depends on whether this points deduction comes in before Christmas or after Christmas. To answer your question, I think, as I say, the signs over the last month on the pitch have been really, really promising, and as I say, with players coming back, with the new signings continuing to bed in, there's definitely scope for a playoff push. We're only 2 points off the playoffs going into this international break. But it is this points deduction hanging over our heads, and I think I'd have to say lower, just on the basis if this points deduction does come in before Christmas. Yeah.
Awesome. I was just thinking about the other teams that had struggled with points deductions. I think the big difference is goals, isn't it? And we've already mentioned the sort of creative players, and I'm thinking about Darby, who've basically bought Colin Kazim Richards in, and funnily enough, loaned Jack Marriott to Sheffield Wednesday, who were the other team who basically had no goals in their team, didn't they? And I think that might well be the key difference. A lot of people are not as worried about Reading being adversely affected. Right, we've got to do this then. It's an old school GCSE grade. I'm sure you got plenty of A's, Olly, in your school days. I suspect you're going to give us a pretty positive grade once we factor in all of the circumstances here. What are you scoring Veljko Paunovic and Reading for a 10th place start just about a quarter of the way through?
Yeah, it is fairly positive. As I say, the mood has changed dramatically since the last international break. If I'd answered the question at the end of August, it would probably be sort of a D&E. But the last month has dramatically turned things around, and I'd probably go sort of probably a B, to be honest. I think particularly, as you say, given the circumstances, given, as I say, the quality that they have been able to bring in the transfer market despite the restraints, and the impact that those players have had. And there have been some good performances. We're starting to see the team get a little bit tighter at the back now. As I say, ship goals for fun at the start of the season, but we've now kept 2 clean sheets in the last 3 games. We're seeing that we can sort of win these cagey games. The win over Fulham was brilliant. By far the best performance of the season so far, going away to the league leaders, and over Ajaria showing it's brilliant. So, yeah, I think obviously until this points deduction comes in, there's a lot of reason to be positive. And 2 points off the playoffs after 11 games is certainly, I think, a place that many people would have taken. I think a lot of people would have predicted sort of a mid-table, maybe bottom half finish for Reading this season. So to be in a place we are now, I think is really positive indeed. So yeah, I think I'd go a B, I think.
Absolutely. I think as well, just to jump in on the deduction, honestly, it feels like the later the better. If I'm a clever solicitor working for Reading, I'm delaying. Because if you remember the Birmingham example, they were sort of nicely positioned in comfortably upper sort of mid-table, and for the points to be on the board before they're hacked off, obviously people will give the Wigan example. That was 12. And that was an administration, which is a very, very different thing. So, yeah, awesome. Thank you for that, Olly. Where can tell us about the Tilehurst End and the website and podcasts and stuff, and where we can find your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, at the Tilehurst End, we've got match reports, player ratings, analysis, interviews occasionally as well. So, yeah, regular content on the website. So that's the tilehurstend.com and at the Tilehurst End on Twitter.
Olly, thank you so much for coming on, and keep up the great work.
Cheers, Ben. Thank you.